Welcome to an episode of Unapologetic. I'm Will Posnan. I'm joined by WNBA center Kiah Stokes.
Hey.
and today we are recording this, probably the day it'll come out tomorrow. We're recording this on February 28th. And we only are going to talk about one thing because there's really one thing in the news that's more important than everything else. We're going to talk about the war in Ukraine because, it's unlike, we just had COVID, still have COVID. That was unlike anything else. This is unlike anything else. Let's start with this. Kiah, have you been to Ukraine?
I have not been to Ukraine, but I've played in Turkey for 6 years, and so there's Turkey, then the Black Sea, and then Ukraine. So it's like kind of close in proximity. There's actually a girl from Ukraine on my team over in Turkey. So talking to her, she's not really happy. Doesn't necessarily like the way things are going, obviously, but she says her family's okay, which is the best part.
She doesn't like how things are going in terms of Ukraine being attacked by Russia, or in terms of the response? Yeah. Okay. So the big part of it. No, that makes sense.
She is
like, is she terrified, or is it more like waited? What I mean, yeah. How have those conversations gone? I mean, I'm sure you have friends that play in Russia, in Ukraine, and all over. So yeah, how have those conversations gone? Not necessarily just with her, but just around basketball circles with people throughout Europe.
It's actually been kind of crazy. So I was talking to a guy who was playing in Ukraine this season, and I wouldn't say we're like really good friends, but like we're friends through social media. And so when I found out that Ukraine was about to get into a war there, he was lucky because his whole team sent everyone home, which I think was amazing, that they actually care for the athletes in Ukraine. And then their team relocated to Czech, so he had to go back, but they're finishing games, but their team is now in Czech instead of Ukraine, which I thought was cool. And then I have teammates, other WNBA players that are in Russia. We actually got an email yesterday from our league that said, if you're playing in Russia, try to get out as soon as possible, because they don't know if flights are going to be delayed and whatnot, which I think is kind of really scary, because, Russia isn't necessarily being attacked. They're doing the attacking. But there's going to be a lot of sanctions when it comes to Russia. They're, shutting down flights. So then nobody wants to get trapped in Russia, especially as an American. You obviously want to get home. So it's kind of a scary situation. I want to say fortunate that I've been in Vegas the last month, so I haven't been in Europe, but I have to go back. And my mom and my dad are very, very worried. They're like, "You got to go back to Europe, kind of in the middle of everything." I was like, I mean, I got a job, so we'll see how it goes.
That is a scary thing, to even go closer to where everything is. Did you have reservations about that?
Yes and no. Like, no, because we're technically not, like, we're kind of by Ukraine, but like not really. So like I think we're okay. But just being over in Europe when it's, this is crazy. This is going to affect the whole world at some point, because who knows what Russia's going to do? Who knows how Ukraine's going to respond? Like, who knows if the European Union is going to help? Like, this could be kind of serious. So it is kind of worrisome to be in the middle of this and not be, in your home country. So that part does scare me. But at the end of the day, like, I feel like if it got too bad for the citizens in Turkey, we would also, they would tell us to go home too. I'm hoping anyways. So right now I think I'm okay. Hopefully, the next couple of weeks it doesn't get worse and they can come to some kind of resolution.
What do you think some of your friends in Russia are going through, having to play for teams that, and I know that the invasion of Ukraine by Russia doesn't have unanimous support among Russian people. It's, I saw in the news that 2,000 Russian protesters got arrested for being for being, openly protesting the invasion of Ukraine. But what do you think that and I'm sure you've talked to some people, so you have some insight. What do you think that's like for people to play for teams in a country that's starting a war, that where they're completely off board with what's happening?
I mean, I feel like it's tough because they're not Russian. At least my friends, they're all American. So that's got to be tough. You're just kind of in a shitty situation. Like we're playing in Russia to make money, so of course they want to be in Russia because Russia is not paying them, but the teams in Russia are paying them.
And Russia is
But it's
one of
a
they pay the most in a lot of cases, right? A
well,
lot of the best players are there.
they have one team that pays the most out of all the teams in Europe. That's a team with like Brianna Stewart, Brittany Griner, Jonquel Jones, Courtney Vandersloot. Like that team pays a lot. They pay the most. But there's also another team that has like Arike, Epiphany Prince, and Tasha Howard, which is another great team. So yeah, they have like some really good players. So of course they've learned to. I don't know if they love being in Russia, but they love their situation they're in. So they're probably torn because, of course, they don't, they're not for the war or anything. They're not Russian. They just happen to be playing on a team that's in Russia. So I think they're just like stuck. I mean, I don't know what other way to say it, but they're stuck. I mean, I feel, okay, this is definitely on a smaller scale, but do you remember when we talked to Satu and there was a whole thing in Dallas when they're trying to deal with these abortions and not abortions and all that
they're
kind of
trying to
stuff?
make
It's like,
abortion illegal in Texas
yeah, so it's kind of
for
the
a
same thing. Like
stretch.
you like being in Texas or playing in Texas, but the state doesn't necessarily reflect your views. So I think it's kind of probably one of those things, but obviously on a smaller scale. Like we're talking about war, and then like
Yeah.
okay, abortion is a big deal to some people as well. But you know what I mean.
But we're literally talking about people blowing up buildings, sending
Yeah.
tanks down the street.
Yeah, so it's different scales, but also similar kind of situations where you're in a place where they might not believe the same things as you. So like, how do you deal with that? I don't know.
Yeah. I mean, it's one aspect of it that's a little bit crazy to just experience is one of the big debates is, should America just do economic sanctions or should we send troops? And there's like all of the wrinkles in terms of all of that. Like you almost feel like Putin would love for us to send troops so that he could go, okay, full war. And he's talking about,
Yeah.
how do you feel? And I can speak on this a little too, just as somebody like you're in your late 20s, I'm in my early 30s. Like it'll be people close to our age who are affected by this stuff. I mean, how do you feel about that, and how are you kind of coping with it?
Um, it's just it's just weird. Like, it's funny. It's not funny, but I seen on Twitter last week. It's like I'm tired of being in unprecedented times, and I really agree with
Yeah.
that. We had a virus shut down the world for 2 years. And we still don't even know how to deal with it now, and now we're on the verge of like a world war, depending on who's trying to jump in and who's trying to not. And
Yeah, when I was a kid,
Russia talk about nuclear arms and stuff. I said, "Oh Lord, I ain't got time for this. Like, why can't we just rewind to about 4 years ago when things was like semi okay, and like
yeah,
Trump was our biggest biggest issue."
or can
But
we go all the way back to when the biggest story was like a Seinfeld or a Friends reunion? Like, oh,
yeah,
the
or like
finale of Friends.
go back to when LeBron made his decision to go to Miami. Like, well, that was cool. Like, I feel like that was fine. Why
Yeah,
can't we just do that? Where the biggest thing we had to worry about was which major
burning
athlete was going to
jerseys.
which team. Like,
Yeah.
why can't we do that? But yeah, it's just kind of it's crazy. And I'm not very. I don't follow a lot of world news stuff, but clearly this is all
Yeah.
everywhere. It's just like scary when you actually think about it. Like scary, what could happen, what potentially could happen, what everyone in Ukraine is going through, and other parts of Europe. It's just stressful. This is not how I envisioned the last 3 years of my life going, but yet here we are.
No, I mean, I 100% agree with that. Like it really does go from one news story, one unprecedented thing to a worse one to a worse one. And you're like, is this rock bottom? What's
Nope.
coming next? Nope. Okay.
Yeah, it's like I said, this is just not where I thought we were gonna be at, and yet somehow we're still here.
Yeah. Do you do you think this will inform like American athletes' decisions to play overseas in general, or do you think this will affect well, obviously it's going to affect like the European sports landscape, but do you think that it's going to affect it in terms of where American athletes decide to play? Like, do you think that, or in general, do you think athletes are going to seek out being further? Like, is Turkey kind of too close? Do you think this affects Turkey in terms of, do you think an American athlete goes, oh, that's too close to this conflict? I know that Turkey's not affected, but if you're trying to decide between Turkey or Spain, you don't think so?
No, I mean, well, right now we're in the middle of the season overseas, so it's very
Yeah.
rare that someone's gonna re-sign to a team in Turkey. For the future, I know for my personal reasons, I go overseas to make money. I happen to be in a great city, so it helps me. Some people go overseas because they want to play in Italy, they want to play in Spain. They might not make as much money, and that's great for them. The players that go to Russia, I'm assuming they definitely go for the money. So if that's the case, I think at the end of the day, like let's say next year, I guess like probably in the next couple months when teams start to re-sign people or players can like kind of look at other options for next winter. Maybe they might not want to go to Russia. Who knows, how their financial situation is going to be. But in the meantime, like we don't necessarily go overseas and live out of our home country for 7, 8 months out of the year just to say we did it. Like we go overseas to either make money or just to have an experience. So if you don't want to be, out of the country for 8 months, you're not going to take that chance. But, people like me go over for the money. So if I got to come back to Turkey, I'm going to do it. If Russia's okay next year and they're offering money and somebody wants to go, I can definitely see that, they're still going to go. I think it's, money talks, at least in my situation. That's how I feel.
I wonder if this is going to create kind of like a divide in the sports world, though, where Russian athletes aren't going to play in Western markets and vice versa. Because if you think about a Russian soccer player playing in France right now, or a Russian basketball player playing in America, they're going to be asked all these questions about the war, where they're going to have to choose between saying something that the population they're playing for is going to agree with, or something that could potentially, and that thing could potentially have blowback on people they know back home, or they could say something in support of Russia and Putin, and then that's going to have blowback here, and also it's going to age bad.
No.
Now,
No, I don't think so. I think it's the same thing as if we're doing something stupid as a country in America and we go play somewhere else and they ask us and we'll just be like, I don't have a comment on it. Like I feel like it'll be the same thing, because just because America is doing something doesn't mean that we personally feel the same way. And I think that's the same thing with every country. That's how I think it would be. Like I don't think I'm gonna go to another country and be like, oh man, F America, and they're doing this and they're doing that and da 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 da. Like, I don't think that's how they're gonna be. Not necessarily because of blowbacks, but honestly, if you ask me about the political situation in America, I don't know. Like, I don't know much about it, so I'm not gonna start speaking on things I have no idea about. And I'm not sure. As athletes, maybe other countries are different, but as an athlete, I feel like we're mainly focused on our sport. And then you have instances where like you have players who are very outspoken and they enjoy talking about these things. I'm not one of them, so like in my case, I'm gonna mind my business and try to stick it to what I know instead of spreading false information. But I'm sure other athletes feel the same way. Like they're not an athlete and a political advocate for whatever. I mean, they could be, but I'm sure majority are not. So I think that's where
I think I think there's a double standard sometimes with that stuff, in terms of if you're an athlete and you get asked about the vaccine and you say, I'm vaccinated, I'm pro the vaccine, then you don't get asked any more questions. And if you say, I'm not vaccinated, I have the antibodies, then you get asked a bunch of questions and it becomes the defining thing about you, like Aaron Rodgers, whatever. But I think that if I don't know if there are any Russian players in the WNBA or the NBA, but I imagine that people, like the American media, would not stop asking them about, like, you even see it with UFC a little bit, where the Russian or the fighters that have taken a pro Putin stance, that's just a thing that they can't run from. I mean, I wonder how that's going to affect them. I mean, the most famous one is Khabib, and he doesn't fight anymore. He's retired. But, I wonder about some of these athletes. Like the soccer club Chelsea is run by a guy who's friends with Putin. And I just wonder with some of these athletes and some of these sports people that Putin is adjacent to their brand, like, if this is going to be a thing that, like, you can't be cool with Putin and with Nike, I would imagine. So I wonder how that is going to affect things.
I mean, it's possible. Like I said, I don't know, and
anything's possible. That's
yeah. It would be interesting, but like I said, majority of people that I know go overseas for the money, at least for women's basketball. I don't know about soccer. I don't know about fighting or UFC or whatever, so that's up to them. But I mean, if they want to take their own stance and stick with it, that's great. But for someone who is just neutral or like doesn't care either way, I mean, I'm sure they care, but some people don't like to cause a ruckus in the media. That's fine. I think they're just going to be like, I don't want to talk about it, or I don't know. Or like even before when they're asking us about the vaccine, or they asked us about the NBA players getting vaccinated, I said, y'all got to talk to them. Like, that has nothing to do with me. So I feel like you can kind of do a similar thing like that. Like, that ain't got nothing to do with me. Like, talk to whoever. So, I mean, that's what I would take it as.
And I guess we'll see if, because you said the WNBA sent out the email saying try to leave Russia if you're playing there. And we'll see if people, when they leave, if they come back. I guess that'll be a pretty interesting thing.
Yeah, it would be tough. I mean, I'm sure they would have to at some point if the situation gets under control. But if they don't, I'm actually curious to see how the seasons would end, because obviously, y'all probably don't know, but we're in EuroLeague. So we play against other teams around Europe, and we play against two teams that are in Russia. So I'm curious.
I think they're saying
send the Americans home. Are we going to cancel EuroLeague and just do Turkish League, or are they going to relocate like the Ukrainian teams did? It's actually interesting. I'm going to check in with the people I know that are playing in Russia currently, and see what their clubs are saying about everything, because I definitely have no idea.
So that's what got me thinking about it is some of the national soccer games, Russia was scheduled to play Sweden and one other country, and the other European countries are saying they won't play the Russian team. And I wonder if that'll.
It's the national team, isn't it? Or is it just a team?
But that's the thing. So that's it. We'll see if it extends, because right now they're not going to play the national team. But you would think.
But
well, they're talking about.
Because it's Team Russia, right? It's not a Russian team. It's like actually the country Russia, their team.
But when they're talking about crippling economic sanctions, part of that would be we're not going to involve ourselves with Russian companies. Like, all these teams are Russian companies.
Well, that's a little different, because that's the Russian team. Like, nobody wants to like deal with Russia right now. They're trying to cause a war, but that's a team more than like the individual players.
No, I know, but
are just there to do their job. And the
but I'm talking about the clubs. Like, if they're saying that they won't, I mean, who knows? I guess we'll see if they'll play the individual Russian clubs. I mean, so they won't play the national team. I would think that they shouldn't play the Russian clubs as well, because when you're talking about crippling economic sanctions, it's like if you're saying I'm going to do crippling economic sanctions against the state of Florida, and then you go play against the Miami Heat, like, that wouldn't make sense.
Yeah, but that's different though, because one is a country, like Team Russia is their own, like, they're funded by something other than a private owned club that has the money to do whatever they want. So that's why I think the difference is, because one's the actual, like, representing Russia as the country, and then you have another one who's just a team that just happens to be in Russia, who does their own thing, makes their own money. They just happen to be in Russia.
Like, the banks are like British banks, European banks, American banks, they won't deal with Russian banks right now. Oil companies, British, American oil companies, they won't deal with the Russian oil companies. So you would think that would extend to like, oh, we're not going to play these. We're not going to send our French club, whatever it's called, PSG, to go play in Russia and fill up their stadium, like that's going to generate
not
revenue
going to Russia, but if a Russian team was trying to go somewhere else, I mean, they may or may not want to play. I don't know, but also I don't know if. I guess I don't know, but I still think like individual clubs are different than like Team Russia. I think it's very, very different.
I think it's different, but I would hope that. I mean, I just think like it seems like the non-violent money approach is going to be the smartest way to deal with it. So I would hope that could extend as far as possible so that Putin can stop. I mean, it really just does seem like he looked in the mirror one day and was like, what have you even done with your life, Putin? You need to conquer Europe. Like, it just seems like just very depressing and petty on his end. Like, it was on his to-do list. He was like, I got to get to it.
Hasn't, I mean, I get my info from Twitter, so I honestly don't know what I'm talking about. But I heard that he's been talking about doing this since 2014. Like, clearly it's been on his mind. So I don't know. Hopefully this just gets resolved soon, because I need to go back to when I can look at my Twitter feed and I just get to laugh at the jokes. And now I don't want to see the destruction that the world has come to, because it's like really sad. And it's like when you see the videos and pictures, and I see a bunch of tweets from like Ukrainian people who are just like emotional, stress, worrisome. Like, it's really, really sad. And you just hope that everything can be resolved so that these people are going to be okay. Like, that's like really super sad. So I'd rather have them be okay and go back to the jokes than to see all this madness going on.
No, let's end it there. I mean, I think that we all hope that, and hopefully maybe in 4 to 5 podcasts this will be resolved, and hopefully it resolves itself in a way where dictators don't want to declare war on places anymore, because it doesn't really play out well for them.
Yes, we're going to keep our fingers crossed for that one.
All right, well, that's the end of the episode, and next one will be about something more basketball-y or music-y, something more fun. So we're looking forward to that.
Like how the Lakers suck right now, and I'm really disappointed, but yeah, that's for next time.
Yeah, maybe by next podcast, the Lakers will be on a win streak and there'll be peace in Ukraine. Maybe, hopefully. All right.
Hey guys, thanks for watching. Click over here to check out the latest episode, and click up here to subscribe. I feel like that's good enough. I feel like it's so... Well, yeah, because it was easier once I had to watch you do it. Watch you fuck up a few times, and I was like, all right, bet I can do it now. Okay.